Hi, I'm Rachel Bernstein, and I'm a licensed therapist. And today I'm going to talk to you about how a narcissistic person can control another person. And that relationship can become like a one-on-one cult. I'm a cult specialist, so I have a lot of clients who come to see me to talk about their cult experience. But at the same time, I have a lot of clients who come to see me because they're in what they call a one-on-one cult. So let's first describe what a cult leader would be like and how it would be like someone who is a narcissist. Cults are usually led by people who would be classified as having a narcissistic personality disorder. Sometimes also seen as a sociopath, someone who really doesn't care about your experience and doesn't care about your pain and isn't focused on you, but is only focused on playing mind games so that they can use you and have power over you. The problem is that you don't often know this about the person who's seeking you out to control you. A narcissist can be very charming and confident and secure and charismatic and can be the life of the party, and you can feel specially chosen to be with this person. Eventually, you will start seeing signs of this inflated ego and a tinge of anger and high drama. You'll hear stories about how this person seems to be getting into fights with people, and everyone at work is getting in their way of a promotion, and it's never their fault. And you start to feel a bit sorry for this person, and you believe their stories. The problem is that they create this kind of conflict in their world, and they love to be able to trigger reactions in other people. It's basically sport. It's a power play. And they don't have insight about it. They don't care about cause and effect, that they're creating the drama. They think people are doing things to them. They're not reflective. They don't think back on things they've done in the past. Narcissists stay from this moment and look forward towards the future. They don't reflect back. And so the people who are controlled by narcissists remember things that have happened to them in the past at the hands of this narcissist, but the narcissist probably will not remember. They're not honest, they're not kind. They also don't show a lot of compassion. They want you to show compassion towards them. And they project all of their issues onto you. So all the things that they're guilty of doing to you, they accuse you of doing to them. They feel very entitled also to get away with anything they want to get away with, and making you upset, making you angry. They're also opportunists, so they know who to go after, which we will talk about. Sometimes you'll notice that the person is the narcissist at the very moment that you say no for the first time. I tell this to people who are involved in cults, and they tell me that the group they're involved with is really perfectly fine, and they've never had an issue with it. And I say to them, well, tell them that you're not going back, and tell them that you're not going to sign up for the next weekend, and tell them that you disagree with what they're saying. And then you'll find out. So what happens also with narcissists is that they have something very specific to them, which is a narcissistic injury and narcissistic rage. And a narcissistic injury is when they feel that they've been attacked. You haven't attacked them. Most often people haven't really attacked them, but they just feel that way. They take things as a slight. It's all in their perception. And so they then feel injured, and then they fly into a rage, which can be an outward rage or a seething rage, but you'll know it. And then they'll need to get you back, and then some, to even the score, and then to be able to win. The other part is that, and this is always a surprise to people, that a narcissist, similar to a cult leader, is a very insecure person. They have a core inside that's quite fragile. And so much of what they do, if not all of what they do, is a way to defend this inner core. And so they manufacture a world where people around them will only notice what's good and strong and powerful and wonderful and attractive about them. And they keep that part inside hidden. And as soon as you trigger that part, you'll know it. They'll start letting you know by virtue of needing to control you, put you down, abuse you. Because really, they're insecure, they're anxious, they're wounded people. So, who do they seek out to be able to control? Because part of what makes them successful at what they do is that they know who to zero in on in order to do it too. So, generally, who they seek out are people who we refer to as empaths, people who are empathic, people who are sensitive, who are kind, who think about other people's feelings. In retrospect, they had that kind of awareness that they were being controlled and abused, but they still miss their time there and they still feel bad for the people who treated them this way. Empaths sometimes do that. And so people also who have been in abusive relationships will still sometimes feel sorry for the person who really made their life hell. And so narcissists, controllers rely on that. So empaths are compassionate, they're patient, they're deferential, they're polite, they're generous, they're conscientious, forgiving, caretaking, and sometimes insecure themselves. And I tell people sometimes if they want to know if they're an empath to notice the following, that the next time someone bumps into them, do they apologize? And if you say sorry when someone bumps into you, there's probably a part of you that's an empath. Because whether or not it was your fault, you feel bad about what happened, and you feel like you have to make it right, and you don't want the other person to be upset with you. When someone bumps into you who is a kind person and you say, I'm sorry, they'll say, oh, no, it was my fault. But if a narcissist bumps into you and you say, I'm sorry, they'll say, you should be. The other part that is true about empaths is that they're conflict averse. They'll do whatever they can to not have a fight, even if it means that they have to agree, even if it means that they have to take responsibility for everything, even though it wasn't their fault. They just want things to be calm. They want to have a house that feels peaceful. They want to be able to say things instead to themselves in their own minds rather than saying them out loud, because they don't want to trigger a response in another person that could be negative or make them upset. So empaths talk a lot, but in their heads. And if you are someone like this who's in a relationship where you're not being treated well, you'll know what I mean. That sometimes you talk a lot about what you wish you could say to the other person, and sometimes you scream it in your head, and you hope that in some way the other person hears your screaming. The other part is that empaths and people who are sensitive and kind and deferential will give the wrong people too many chances. They'll give them second chances, third chances, fourth chances, over and over and over again. They'll also get into a loop where they feel like they have to justify why they feel the way they feel. They have to explain themselves. They have to somehow reason with a person who is really not treating them in any way that's involved with reason. And that can be quite crazy-making, that you're trying to get someone to understand your position who doesn't have any interest or any ability to really understand your position. Many of the people I work with also tell me in retrospect that they were a bit put off by the person who they let into their lives to that degree where they were controlled by them. Sometimes they're even repelled by them. They thought they were a little too much, or they thought they were gross. I mean, it depends how you feel about a person that really makes you feel a bit wary of that person. And that's a red flag. Because when you have that initial response to someone, there's something to it. But then, if you're a sensitive, kind person, you think it's wrong to feel that way. And you want to give someone another chance, and another chance, and another chance. If someone who's trying to control you also thinks that you're not really willing to get too close, and you're not really willing to get into that kind of relationship where they have that kind of power over you, they'll try another tact, which is to try to trigger your conscience and the part of you that makes you a caring person. So very often, the ones who control you and emotionally abuse you will tell you some sort of sob story about how they were abused themselves, or they were abandoned, or they were mistreated, or they're never understood. And finally, they're so happy to have met you that you're the one person who's going to stand by them even though no one else does. And you're the one person who's going to believe in them, and you're the one person who will never leave them. If anyone says that to you, that's time to go. But in the moment, you think, well, I can't be that person who hurts this person yet again. I'm going to then become this kind of champion for this person. I'm going to be the one who is going to be able to care for this person, be a protector, really be gentle with that part of this person who, it's really wounded. And I can't then be the one to hurt them as well. I won't be able to live with myself. The other part is that someone who is controlling you in this way also knows that if they can get this message across to you, it can be very, very powerful. That they could choose to be with anyone, but they have chosen you. You then can start to feel special. And you then will lower your defenses. And then, once you lower your defenses, that's when the relationship begins. Whether it's a love relationship or a cultic relationship, you now have a connection with this other person that is going to be very dramatic and quite intense. It's going to feel unlike any other relationship you've ever been in, unless you've been in a relationship with a narcissist in the past. So, what you're going to notice right away is that when it's good, it's fantastically good. You feel like you're on a high. You feel like you can't get enough. And very often, you feel like this is a person who is going to give you the possibility of feeling unlike you've ever felt before. But then, that electricity, that charm, that part of that person that makes you feel so special, starts to shift. And you start to notice that things are changing. And things are going to change sometimes very slowly before you've made an actual commitment to that person, before you signed on, before you have become a member of a particular cult, before you have moved in with a person, before you've signed a marriage contract. As soon as they know they have you, though, things change very quickly. And you'll notice it'll feel like whiplash. That suddenly there's no way for you to give that person enough attention, and suddenly you can't seem to say or do the right thing ever, and you are no longer seen as attractive, as someone who should have been chosen by this person and that they could find someone better. Your level of competence, your level of intelligence, your level of capability in any area is then under question. You also will notice that suddenly you're seen as the one who can't be trusted. Very often your emails are going to be gone through, letters are going to be opened, phone records are going to be checked. Somehow you're up to something that's underhanded, where he or she who's controlling you can't rely on you to be honest. So what we know about human psychology is that very often what is true for us, we assume is true for other people. So when people start accusing you of being a certain way, that gives you a lot of insight into the person who's accusing you. You always want to consider the source of the accusation. So when you know you're not doing anything wrong, but this person keeps saying that you are, they're clearly paranoid, they're clearly worried, but also there's a high likelihood that they don't do things in a way where they should be trusted. They're probably doing things behind your back. The other part is that you're going to be told that you are challenging the future of the relationship and that any conflict is your fault. You are going to be called lazy. You're going to be called ungrateful. That's a big one for someone who's empathic, to be called ungrateful. You're often going to be told that somehow you're not appreciating all that you're being given, all the opportunities you're being given. And when someone is sensitive and kind and giving and is told that they're ungrateful, it really gets under their skin. And then they feel guilty, and then they work harder to show that they're grateful. And that becomes part of this cycle of really being baited. And you'll notice that you're being triggered and baited quite often. The problem is that that's going to exhaust you, but energize them. And you'll notice that as your level of energy goes down during these conflicts and repeated conflicts, their level of energy goes up because they're feeding off of this because they love it and they use it as fuel. And instead, your tank is getting empty. The other part is that you won't ever be able to respond well to an argument. Because no matter how you respond, if you're not in complete agreement, you're responding the wrong way. So if you feel in a moment of bravery that you can say something out loud and say, that's just not true, whatever you're being accused of, then you're being argumentative and you're being abusive. If you decide that saying something out loud never gets you anywhere and decide to be silent instead, your silence is going to be diagnosed as also abusive, that you're being manipulative, that you're being hostile, and also that somehow it's proof of your guilt, because if you were innocent, you would say so. And it just keeps going and going. Again, there's no way out, because you're going to try to apply some reason to a situation that doesn't have reason involved in it. The other part is that you're always going to feel like you're on the witness stand, constantly having to explain, to prove your innocence, that somehow you're going to feel like this person who you're with is your judge and jury. And the problem is that you're guilty till never proven innocent. And the fact that then you're going to be seen as someone who's constantly guilty will be a whole reason for him or her to call you a bunch of other things, like pathetic, that you never make sense because you're trying to explain things and not getting through. Or the fact that you keep trying to explain and not getting through means you're weak or you're stupid. What you're going to notice too is that everything you do and everything anyone else does to that person is seen somehow as an attack. It's seen as a challenge. Or you're going to be accused of mocking the other person. You start to feel scared. You start to feel alone. You're very often told to keep all of this a secret. You start to feel like you're going crazy. And you're stuck. And really importantly, you start to have physical symptoms. You'll notice that you're having trouble sleeping, that you've lost your appetite, that you can't concentrate, that you don't feel motivated, that you're not able to be the person you really want to be in your world as someone who's devoted to a cause in a cult, or somebody who is a wife or even a parent. You can't be the kind of person you want to be even in your workplace because you're so afraid of going back home. And what makes people calm in their lives is that there's a predictable pattern to things. They know that when they come home, they know basically who's going to be there and what it's going to be like. Or they know that when they get involved in a cause or a religious organization or something, they know what's expected of them and they know how things are going to go. But when you're in close contact with or in a relationship with someone who is a narcissist, everything about your day is unpredictable because you never know what's going to set them off. And you never know what you're going to be called. And you never know how it's going to feel when you walk in the door. And eventually, you start to lose yourself, that part of you that makes you, you. So let's talk about what happens in the relationship itself that is particular to having a close relationship with someone and really being at the mercy of someone who is a narcissist, who has those sociopathic tendencies, who is a controller. You're going to find that things are bad and suddenly they're good again. You won't know why, but they're fine. And the person's being solicitous towards you or offering you compliments, being kind and offering you even a glass of water, little things that really never ever happen. And you're going to think, all right, it's not so bad. And maybe this person was just going through a hard time and now things are going to be potentially better. But it doesn't last long. In fact, it usually only lasts for a day, maybe two. So if you feel that the things that I've covered in this video pertain to you in your life in any way, or you know of someone in a situation like this and you want to know how to help them, give me a call. Be sure to get in contact, be sure to get support, be sure to get help. It's your first step, and it's an important one.